Hey friends, it's Robin. Welcome back to my channel. So today we are doing another month of new releases. We are doing July's new releases. I actually have quite a few books coming out in July that I'm excited for. We have 13 books to talk about, so we are going to go through all of these in release date order. I do have some indie books that are on here. Let's just get right into the new releases. First up on July 5th, we have two books that I'm excited for. The first one is Below Zero by Hazelwood. This is already out on audiobook. I have read this. This is my favorite of the novella series, but this comes out on ebook on the 5th. So if you are not an audiobook listener, you can read this on ebook on the 5th, but this one follows the last friend in the friend group from the previous two books, and she is an aerospace engineer, and she begins working for NASA and has a thing with one of the managers there, and something happens, some miscommunication goes down, and they end up butting heads and not getting along. She goes onto this very dangerous mission, and she gets stranded in the Arctic, and the only person that is willing to save her is her sworn enemy. It's a great enemies to lovers romance, second chance romance. There's caretaking in here. It is absolutely wonderful. So if you have not read this yet on audio, definitely check it out on ebook. The next thing coming out on the 5th is actually another thing that I have read, but that is the second installment of Lore Olympus, Volume 2. And if you have not read this, this is a webcomic that is a Hades and Persephone retelling. This is my all-time favorite Hades and Persephone retelling, but this webcomic got picked up by Del Rey and they are slowly releasing them in these beautiful bind-ups. I have the Illumicrate edition. This artwork is absolutely stunning, but if you have not read this yet, I highly recommend it. This is a very close retelling to the Greek mythology. So if you know the story of Hades and Persephone, this follows it pretty closely. The themes are beautiful. This comic has made me cry many times. So definitely check this out because book 2 is coming very, very soon. On July 11th, we have Tease by Melanie Harlow, and this is the third book in the second generation of the Cloverleaf Farms series, and I believe the second generation is following all of the children of the original 5 books, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this is back at Cloverleaf Farms. I love Melanie Harlow's small town romances, and I've heard really good things about this second generation. So book 3 is coming out very soon. I have no idea who this follows. I actually did read the synopsis and it did not tell me who the heroine was, but this is a billionaire romance. So our heroine, I believe, is at her high school reunion, and while she is there, she's drunk and in her emotions, and she accidentally tells everyone that she is engaged to a billionaire, and she happens to be friends with somebody who is very wealthy, and they enter into a fake dating situation so that she doesn't look like a liar, and I assume they fall for each other. Again, I don't know who the characters are in this, but all I had to hear was fake dating, billionaire romance set in a small town. On to July 12th, we have Always Be My Duchess by Amalie Howard, and this is a new historical romance from this author. We are following a duke who wants nothing to do with love, and we are also following an ex-ballerina who refuses to become the mistress to a wealthy patron, and because of that she is kicked out and now she is careerless and jobless, but she accidentally saves the life of the duke, and he propositions her to become his fake fiance, and suddenly she is living this life of luxury, and I assume is them falling in love, and I love that premise. I am so excited to see a historical romance with this premise. I think it's going to be super fun. This cover is really cute. Next up on this date is The Romance Recipe by Ruby Barrett, and this is another chef cooking show romance. This one sounds really cute. This is a sapphic romance. We are following a restaurant owner who is a very type A micromanager, and she is desperately trying to save her restaurant. So she brings in a previous reality TV cook show person, and she is very grumpy in the kitchen and just wants to cook. She doesn't want anything to do with the social media promotion side, which is the exact reason why she was brought in. And now they are trying to work together. They have to come together to try and save the restaurant. And it sounds like they might have to go back onto a reality TV situation. And this just sounds really cute. If I'm going to read this trope, I usually want it to be queer, so I'm really excited for this one. A totally different type of book coming out on this day is The It Girl by Ruth Ware. I'm very picky about my mystery thrillers, but I have read pretty much every Ruth Ware at this point, and she's just one of my favorite authors, and this is going to be her latest book. I do know that apparently this is supposed to be like her least creepy. Ruth Ware recently did a post where she ranked all of her books on like the creepy factor, and this was last. So if you are looking for something that's a little bit less creepy, have this one on your list. I have not read the synopsis for this yet, so I'm just going to quickly read the synopsis. It says, April was the first person that Hannah met at Oxford. She was bright, occasionally vicious, and the ultimate it girl. She quickly pulled Hannah into her orbit, and together they developed a group of devoted and inseparable friends. But by the end of the year, April was dead. Now, a decade later, Hannah and Will are expecting their first child, and the man convicted of killing April has died in prison. Relieved to have finally put the past behind her, Hannah's world is rocked when a young journalist comes knocking and presents new evidence that the man convicted may have been innocent. I love the premise of like college friends coming back together and solving a murder. That's very reminiscent of like Lucy Foley's first book. I love that type of premise. So I'm very excited for this one. It sounds kind of classic mystery-esque. And then the last book on this day is a sequel, and that is A Curse of Blood and Stone by K.A. Tucker. This is the sequel to A Fate of Wrath and Flame, which I read earlier this year. I will link that vlog up in the cards if you are interested. I'm not going to go into the synopsis of this one since it is a direct sequel, but this is the second book in a fantasy romance series following a young woman who accidentally being sent to this fantasy realm, and she wakes up in the body of a princess, and this princess has recently killed off the royal family, and she has no memories of any of it, and so she is trying to prove her innocence while falling in love with the prince of the family who was just killed, and I am extremely excited to see where it goes from here. On to the 19th. First up, we have The Accidental Pinup by Danielle Jackson, and this is a debut romance. This is about rival photographers in Chicago who end up having to come together for a photo shoot. Our heroine's name is Cassie, and she is a photographer, and she works for a company that does like classic pinup for women. And then her best friend ends up launching a like lingerie line, and she wants our heroine to be the model for the lingerie. But the photographer that is brought in is our heroine's longtime competitor, and I believe it is an enemies to lovers romance between the two of them. The idea of a photographer and the model falling in love and having a steamy romance just intrigues me so much. That dynamic sounds like it's meant to be. Next up is The Sweetest Connection by Denise Williams, and this is another one that is already out on audio but is coming out on ebook on this day. And this is the third book, I believe, in the Airport novellas series. I actually don't remember who this one follows, but this entire novella series takes place at an airport, and you are following our couples as they meet at this airport and fall in love. It is a really cute series. I've read the first two books, but I haven't read this third one yet, and they're all very cute and fun. The setting plays an important role in the series, which I think is very cool. And then the final book for this day is another sequel, and that is These Twisted Bonds by Lexi Ryan. Again, I'm not going to go into the synopsis of this particular book, but the first book is These Hollow Vows, and it is a YA fantasy romance. It is very classic, cliche YA fae fantasy. You are following a heroine who has to go into the fae realm to try and save her sister. She ends up going to this ball and realizing her best friend from the real world has a secret fae identity. There's a love triangle. It is a very good time. Lexi Ryan's writing is so addictive, and even though it has all of the tropes and everything like that you already know, something about it is just too fun, too bingeable, and I'm very excited to wrap up the series. This is the end to the duology. On July 22nd, we have Does It Hurt by H.T. Carlton, which is a new standalone from the author who wrote the Cat and Mouse duet. The synopsis for this one is extremely vague and kind of confusing, but it sounds like we're following a heroine who runs away from something and has kind of been under a false identity until she meets a man who teaches her some secrets, something, and now they're at this abandoned lighthouse and something is happening. It says, I'm a girl who's seeking refuge in a decrepit lighthouse with a man who loathes me almost as much as he craves me. He wants to hurt me, but the old caretaker of the abandoned island may have intentions far more sinister. The last line says, it's no longer a question of who I am, but rather, will I survive? I have absolutely no more understanding of what this book is about than I did before I read that synopsis. And then the last release date is July 26th, and I have two more books. One is A Strange and Stubborn Endurance by Meadows. I've talked about this book in quite a few videos at this point. I am insanely excited for this. This is a queer fantasy romance. It is a marriage of convenience. After one of our heroes comes out as gay, he ends up marrying the son of the rival kingdom in a marriage of alliance. And that's all I know about it. I just love a marriage of convenience. I love fantasy romance, and I'm excited to dive into this and see what it's all about. And then the last book is one final sequel, and that is Master of Iron by Tricia Levenseller. I am not the biggest YA fantasy reader anymore. However, I love Tricia Levenseller's writing. It is so readable and addictive. I loved The Shadows Between Us. I loved the first book in the series, which was Blade of Secrets, and I'm excited to get the final book in the duology. But essentially in this world, we are following our heroine who has the ability to imbue the weapons that she makes with magical traits. And she ends up creating this extremely powerful sword for somebody that she thinks is a good person. Turns out that they are not. They're trying to overthrow the kingdom. And so her and her sister end up going on the run with this sword with two other people, and the four of them are fleeing, and you learn some secrets about who each of them are and why they need to protect this sword and why people are trying to overthrow the kingdom. It is really fun and action-packed. There are queer characters in here. It is a really good time. So that is all 13 books that I am personally super excited about for the month of July. There are always books that I end up learning about after I make these videos that I want to add to this list, especially self-pubbed and indie books, because those tend to have shorter announcement periods. So if I missed anything, let me know. I would love to add it to my TBR. And I always do week by week releases over on my Instagram, which is always linked in the description box. So if I do add any to my list, they will be there, and I will catch y'all next time. Bye!